Not exactly hidden. Was this part of the city always here? Magi Kemka asks as she looks around the commercial spaceport. Sure was, Morg Arkin states as he looks around and nods. Things have gone well. He made sure to fix most of the damage himself, but not even a crack remains of him throwing boulders at spaceships. I should have seen it before, especially as it's on the outskirts. People don't want the comings and goings of ships to interrupt their days. Spaceports are busy, noisy places, and many consider them ugly for all that they're incredibly useful and immeasurably valuable. Morg Arkun notes as he leads the young woman into the port. She's wearing the carry bag with her arms through the handles. It looks clumsy but leaves her hands and legs completely free. The only downside is that it blocks her peripheral vision somewhat. Not that she's going to keep it like that long. It needs to pass through luggage, much like his little collection. He sighs as a familiar voice pops up on the speaker system, and the background sounds that covers up all the hustle and bustle and talk in the port switches to a much loathed pop singer's greatest hit. Even worse, Maggie Kemka starts singing along. Oh, come on, this song is great, Tilda, and then I will always seek you, Tilda. Maggie Kemka sings with it, and Morg Arkin groans in disgust. He'd like the song a lot more if it wasn't about his former stalker pining for him and whining that he kept woodwalking away whenever he heard her coming. Come on, sing with me, Tilda. Oh, you slipped away from my fingers in that bright day in... That's more than enough. I'm not a fan of Valagrand. Oh, fine, be that way, Maggie says, before humming it instead. It's an improvement if nothing else. So, Maggie asks as they stand in line to get their tickets checked and their luggage scanned. So? Why is a sorcerer using public transport? Why not use your own spaceship? I don't have a spaceship and I don't know how to pilot, Morg Arkun remarks blandly. Never saw the need. I was never overcome with the urge to travel too much. I've always had home and more parts of it to explore than I could in hundreds of years. So why hurry? Well, the very idea of why hurry seems to really bother Magi for a moment as she considers things and then lapses into a thoughtful silence. They go through the checking of their tickets and there's a few questions of why Morg has so many plant cuttings and seeds, but a gift for a friend is easily accepted. Mostly because the attendant was trying not to stare at him. Their bags are under the weight limit and they're waved through into the proper waiting room. They make chairs out of plastic? Is the first thing Magi Kemka, or perhaps Alara Salm asks when she sees the room. Not everyone can afford hand-carved hardwood and embossed leather, Morg Arkun notes. But the village was hand-carved and it was made with sorcery and a high amount of skill as well as top-quality materials. This is very normal. He tells her as he walks over to where there are a group of free seats and plops himself into one of them and lets his tail hang out the hole in the back. Magi Kemka sits down in the one next to him before standing up. What's wrong? Where's the padding? She asks. It isn't, he says. Really? No Axiom air cushions? Nope. No anti-gravity support? None. No morphing smart material? Basic plastic molded to a general butt shape with a hole to accommodate tails that can't be comfortably swept to the side. Morg Arkun states calmly before smirking at her. Things are very different in the world of watching your budget. I suppose, she says, shifting around to examine the chair again. Why does it have a seam on it? It was poured into a mold, I think. I don't really know the process. These kinds of chairs are mass-produced on such a scale that it could be from the Meccan Reach for all I know. Morg replies and she starts outright examining the seat. Here we go. Made in... Where's Valis? She asks as she looks at the back of the chair with her butt in the air and her tail wagging up and down in interest. It's a major mass production hub right next to the main Axiom lanes. I can't give you precise coordinates, but it's 30 seconds of research on any communicator. Oh, right, she says, before flipping down into the chair and pulling a communicator the men of the village gave her and beginning to browse. That should keep her entertained. Or at least Morg hopes so. The woman is simultaneously extremely naive, but also strangely driven. You don't climb to the top of the dark forest and witness the green sea without having will and strength. The woman is easily 3 times his age and acts barely a third of his time on Serbo, less at times. What are choosies? Magi asks herself as she gets distracted in her bit of research and starts looking into a child's toy that's sold to the parents of small children for the races that like to bite and chew. That they also sold as toys for beloved pets proved just how effective they were, although there was almost always some drama when a pet owner and a parent who bought the same thing. Why is everything on this list just a few tri-tight? How can you possibly have an economic model of a product you ship all over the galaxy when you ask for so little for it? Magi Kemka asks before thinking. Wait. If they're really easy to transport, really easy to transport in absolutely enormous bulk, then it would work. You'd have market-killing low prices and very reliable profit as well. She starts digging into all the products the main company makes, and it's all incredibly cheap product that moves in colossal bulk. Each one was a tiny profit, but there are billions of sales on almost every planet the company has shipping agreements with, and it adds up quickly. What are these used for? She asks, showing him a strange device made of thin metal, plastic, and a lot of garish color. That's a noisemaker. It's used to celebrate loudly when you don't feel like shouting or breaking things. Morg answers as he glances at the device. He can't help but grin, though. His mother hates those things, and there's no faster way to get under her skin than bring out a pair and give them a good and hard twirl. What's so funny? My mom hates them. You know, an argument's about to start when one of my little sisters is bringing them out and whirling them around. What makes it worse is that one of my other mothers actually likes them, as she's a real party girl when she has the downtime. Morg explains, and Magi looks surprised at what he's just shared. Attention passengers. Flight 597 to New Blade City on Lilb Tulelb will now begin boarding at Gate Flare. The announcer system echoes out and Morg Arkun rises up as Magi Kemka pops up to her feet. Gate Flare, there, Morg Arkun says, scanning the room again and then pointing out the proper gateway which just activated. So do they have more comfortable seats on the shuttle? Magi Kemka asks as she picks up her bag. Yes, much better. These shuttle rides can last a little while. Thankfully, Lilb Tulelb isn't too far away, but there's enough time that we've got our own little cabin in case either of us wants a nap. Morg Arkun states as he leads Magi Kemka to the portal doorway and then through it. Their tickets start glowing and flashing dull red. There's a doorway that is flashing in the same pattern and it opens in front of them. Here we are. The room is small with 2 overstuffed and comfortable chairs and a thin but well-padded shelf area that has a slightly raised portion to substitute a pillow. A shelf quickly has his bag on the top and Magi puts her bag in on the shelf under his. The chairs are frameworks with sensors and projectors on them that automatically activate and both catch and cushion Morg Arkun as he flops down into its embrace. Air cushions. These ones are always fun, Magi Kemka says as she steps into hers. Her foot feels like it's sinking into a soft cushion and she stands onto it fully before bouncing a little. Morg Arkun just grins at the sight. Something almost all children do, something that she likely never got to do. It's kind of strange that the idea of her bouncing on the bed and jumping into couches might actually help. Of course she's going to stumble and fall. She's going to hurt herself. But she needs those knocks, needs those scrapes and scratches and little injuries that teach so very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. A soft man's voice says over the intercom as Morg reclines further back into the air-cushioned chair and relaxes. Sure, these chairs aren't warm, but the softness is second to none. We will be taking off from the surface of Serbo in 5 minutes and then begin our 10-hour journey to Lilb Tulelb. We will be landing at slow velocity New Blade City and finally Airship Falls. There will be dinner served in 6 hours, and 3 hours from now will be a light snack. 3 hours after dinner will be a final snack as we approach the Lilb Tulelb system. We have several great programs on our cabin's projector screens, and that includes a favorite of mine, The Tale of Der Kemka, the Dashing Swordsman. That overacted piece of work? Morg Arka notes with a rueful chuckle. He doesn't have much room to throw stones. He loved it when he was younger. It was only after he actually started knowing battle princesses and walking in those kinds of circles that he started seeing all the flaws and inaccuracies. What's it about? Who's Der Kemka? A made-up character, a battle prince that supposedly could charm or clash blades with any two princesses. How do you not know this? He's used in all sorts of shows, movies, and books of all kinds. Morg Arkan asks as he considers. Dale had compared Der Kemka to a human character called Zorro. Then the man went on a pensive rant as he remembered that men are vastly outnumbered by women in the galaxy, and it dawned on him that Der Kemka, who often loses his shirt mid-fight, would be mildly pornographic and a huge draw for reasons other than fun swordplay and a witty story. He just lets himself hang, his internal fire keeping him nice and toasty, with his soft clothes also keeping it in. Warm. Comfortable as he sits on the air cushions and on to the next step of a big journey. There's a bit of nervousness in his gut, but there's excitement too. For all that he's trying to be businesslike, he's never been off Serbo and is honestly a little giddy about things. He really wants to see what another world is like, not just with pictures, but with his own eyes. What does it smell like on Lilb Tulelb? Does their coastal regions have a similar scent to Serbo, or is it something else entirely? Does the air feel different there? Do the stones make different sounds when they're sent rolling by an Apuk's footsteps? So many questions, all of which are soon to get answers. He can't help but smirk a bit as Magi Kemka activates the video. There's a few reasons he chose her name. Not only is it common all over the coastal regions, but it's been used so many times in pop culture that they'll think they're talking about a fictional character if they address her. He lets out a slight yawn. He had run around for a few extra hours last night and lost a bit of sleep as he got all this set up for today. By the time Alara Sam, the elder, gets her head on straight and thinks to actually start looking, they'll be on another planet. At that point, it's entirely up to her daughter if there's a reunion. Of course, that's if Big IF, the family drama, can sort itself out enough to start a proper search. There's a knock on the door and Morg Arkan raises an eyebrow before even opening his eyes again. Maggie answers before he can. Who is it? Last second search, we're looking for someone. The woman on the other side says, and Magi can't help a slight gasp even as Morg Arkan rises up. He opens the door and faces the officer there, who quickly glances around. The officer blinks at the hostile presence from Morg before quickly scanning the room and regarding him again. Are you the City Shaker? I know I'm not in public often, but is that really my nickname? He asks, and there's a wan smile from the officer. I'm afraid so. You're wanted in suspicion of kidnapping. I wasn't kidnapped, I begged him to take me, Magi protests. Are you? Wait a moment, the officer says, taking out a device and scanning the room. You are Alara Sam. I'm leaving willingly. I'd rather be with Morg than Mother. Okay, but I can't just... This is your captain speaking. I apologize for the short delay. Some minor legal matters need to be sorted out. Is there something we can do to solve this quickly? We're inconveniencing a great many people. Inconveniencing? I have a report for the kidnapping of the heiress of the Salm Duchy, and you think it's just a minor inconvenience? Yes, especially as the supposedly kidnapped woman can speak for herself, Morg says, stepping away from the officer as Magi Kemka Alarasam stands up and imperiously strides over to glare at the officer. I was not in any way kidnapped. I ran away and begged for shelter from the sorcerers of the dark forest. How did you even find me this quickly? I want off Serbo and away from my mother. Legal tickets have been bought to permit this travel. I've gone through the security scans and hurt no one. Why am I being barred from leaving? Am I a prisoner? Ma'am, please calm down. I need to call this in and... The officer begins. Put her back in the reach of the woman she's trying to escape from. Brilliant, Morgarkun says, and gets a dirty look from the officer. I have laws and orders to follow, the officer says before pulling out a recording device. Madam Psalm, are you or are you not here willingly with full intention to leave Sorbo? I am here willingly. Did you initially depart your mother's residence of your own free will, yes or no? Yes. Do you remain with Morgarkun, also known as the City Shaker, of your own free will? Yes. Have you been coerced, bribed, blackmailed, or threatened in any way to be with him? I have not. Magi Kemka finishes and the officer nods before deactivating the device. Very well then. I cannot legally hold you. We were misinformed of the situation, and I apologize for the inconvenience. Have a good day and a safe trip, sir and madam, the officer says, stepping away and marching off as half the cabins have their doors open and are watching. Morg closes the door to theirs. Oh no, she's going to know what planet we're on. Lil Beetlelb is far less inhabited than Serbo, and there are a lot more toes she has to avoid stepping on there. At the very worst, we can update our tickets and get off somewhere unexpected. She can have all 3 ports watched, Magi Kemka says gloomily. Then we don't use the ports. There are ways around. I'll speak with the captain while we're in flight. There are still plenty of answers.